UIC.
Freedom and people of
Hell yeah.
freedom and people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom and people of want. Freedom and people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom and people of want. Freedom and people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom and people of want. Freedom and people of need. Yeah,
Yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. The one that free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire pan every.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is Joseph Patterson, UIC President. Tonight we have a very special guest with us. We're going to be talking with Miguel Lorne. I'll allow him to introduce himself. He's been a very important figure on the scene in Jamaica for a long time. Somebody that I have a lot of regards for. I think I met him once or twice. But I was really impressed by his case recently, where, if you were following, you'd have seen in the Gleaner, I think on the 24th of September, where it says Court of Appeal overturns fraud conviction against attorney Michael Lorne. He goes by the name Miguel Lorne as well. So today we want to, hear from him on it and get an understanding of what happened as one way of us looking at the justice system and seeing how it works with the Jamaican people, or doesn't work in some cases. So I'm going to be bringing Miguel on shortly. Welcome to all of you again to another episode of Liberty TV. I see Devra, I see Godfrey, and I see JMH on early as usual. Today has been a very rainy day. You would have seen where a number of our streets and roads were looking like rivers. Once again, a testimony to the neglect and failure of our government to carefully design and manage the environment so that we can cope with these things a little better and not be so terribly disrupted. We're thankful, however, that it wasn't more severe, and so we will quickly recover from this and be able to get back to business as usual to some extent. Welcome, Craig McKenzie from Canada. Good to see you on. Lion Ruler Jungle, good to see you on as well. And Scotty and Cordell, good to see you. And Lamar Lawrence, all of you, a pleasure to have you on tonight. This will not be one of our usual programs. Tonight it's really about a personality. We want to get behind the scenes a little bit and understand what has happened to Miguel Lorne, how the justice system failed him, and how he was vindicated. We want to get a real first-hand understanding of that, because many Jamaicans have not been as fortunate as him. Sometimes they can't afford to pursue justice the way he has been able to. I think his son represented him, which was quite admirable as well, and speaks to his own integrity and ability as a father. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that from him. It's good for us, to listen to our fellow brothers and sisters outside of the elites, those who are in control of our government and our assets, but to hear from others, sometimes on the fringes, who are, less heard of on a day-to-day basis, but who are nonetheless making tremendous strides in trying to bring us better Jamaica. The UIC is committed to creating a new and better Jamaica on the principles of good governance. And I think Mr. Lorne, especially in his activities with the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party, would have been trying to achieve similar things. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Lorne now. So good evening to all of you. Those of you in Sweden, Japan, of course, North America, Canada, USA, Britain, Australia. Hats off to all of you. I'm seeing your comments. I'm seeing your donations. It's quite impressive, to see Jamaicans all over the world who are now donating to the UIC and helping us to forge ahead to give Jamaica an alternative to what we have seen so far. 78 of the same two colonial parties, 78 years of the same two colonial parties. But thanks to you, the UIC is getting the much needed funding it needs for us to push forward. We're now trying to beef up our candidate base, and soon and very soon, Jamaica will have a new government, a different government, and a new system of government, thanks to all of you patriotic Jamaicans around the world. But let me welcome Mr. Miguel Lorne now. Mr. Lorne, how are you doing, sir?
Greetings and blessings. Blessings. Give thanks.
Yes, man. It's been a long time since I saw you. I think we probably met when, in 2018 or somewhere there? A long time ago.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, about 2018. And I was
Yes.
by your establishment there. Got some good books from you and Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
And we had a chat, and I met some of your colleagues. How have you been doing personally? How are you?
Good.
Yes.
Good. We just have to overstand the struggle. There are some people who have one river to cross, and there are some who have many rivers to cross.
Yes.
When you trod the road of Rastafari, therefore you prepare yourself, knowing that you'll be crossing many rivers. And even before I became a lawyer, when I was to be called to the bar in 1979, the Supreme Court judges had a special meeting to decide whether or not to allow me to practice in Jamaica. But it was not dependent on passing exams and so on, because one half of the judges was saying, being a Rastafarian, I'm going to bring danger to the profession and therefore should not be allowed. You believe that? I've never, most of those judges I never knew, I never faced them, but they already had a pre-position, and by a majority of one, I was allowed to practice. Majority of one.
So it wasn't based on your competences or your character. They were basing their decision on your religion.
On my religion and my philosophy.
Yes.
And so the morning when I was to be called to the bar, you had a judge and so on. And because that judge, a judge named Chambers, was known to be a very conservative judge. And I suspect one of those that was against me. So the Chief Justice, Ken Smith, he was not due to be in court, but he came and sat beside that judge throughout the call, just to make sure that things don't get heated between me and him from the very start. So that was how. I'm just giving you an idea of the backdrop. And that was in 1979, and so on.
So even before
that, I worked at the Halfway Tree Courthouse. I got a job at the Halfway Tree Courthouse. And I was to deal with the filing system, the files that were due for court the next day. But the thing was so chaotic, you couldn't find files. So I brought in two of my brethren, Brother Courtney Ross and Brother Errol Cook, two brethren, for Rastafari brethren also. But I brought them in on the weekends, the Saturday and Sunday, so that we could reorganize the entire system, the old, the new, and put it in a way that would make my job easier to find files on mornings for court. And so we did that for a couple of months, and we got it fully up to date. And yet after about 4 or 5 months, I was called to the Ministry of Justice at the time, to the permanent secretary's office, and they called me one day, and when I went down there, and the permanent secretary asked me, it was about 1978 or so. He asked me, when you got the job, you had locks? I said, yes. Miss Shirley Playfair was the one who got me the job, a lawyer. And they promptly fired me same time. I give you that to show that we knew from early that it wasn't going to be an easy river to cross.
So what do you think, though? What is the problem they have with Rastafari? What is the problem they have with you wearing your hair the way you want to? Are you using a God-given herb, a God-given plant the way you want to? You're not infringing on anybody's rights, and you're not. The way you wear your hair doesn't infringe on another man's right to his life, liberty, or property. So, what is the problem? What do you think they're concerned about?
The philosophy of Rastafari that says to the world, we praise a black God. We look to Africa. We look to Ethiopia. We condemn certain things. That is what they're afraid of. You know what I mean?
Wow.
One of the panelists, when the General Legal Council had their meeting within the legal, and like I point out, the General Legal Council of Lawyers is not a democratic organization. It's not selected. People who hold positions in it are not selected by other lawyers. It's a clique. It's a clique system. A friend invite a friend. That's how it works. It's most undemocratic, and this is why the legal profession appears so backward. Because at an age when everyone is fighting and saying, let's get rid of the queen, let's get rid of the king, lawyers are so proud they are still hanging on to QC and KC and all those backward behavior when they should be leading the nation. They're very proud of that behavior. We should be getting rid of the gown. Shouldn't be wearing them full colonial entrapment.
So, Mr. Lorne, what you're telling me is this. The colonial powers have been so good at infesting the minds of our people, and particularly those in the legal profession, that they've been thoroughly brainwashed into the strictures of the colonial system, that they feel they have a great responsibility to protect and maintain that system that honors the colonial masters. Is that what you're seeing?
Oh yes, that's what I've experienced. Yes, it's. They're so proud. They're so proud. You must remember, I brought a lawsuit against the Queen of England. The last time she came here in 2002, we brought, and there's only one other lawyer in this country that assisted me in that fight, and that's Bert Samuels. Most of the lawyers condemn me for that. Why the hell are you? I brought the suit against the Queen of England, against the Prime Minister P.J. Patterson at the time, against the Governor General, against the Attorney General, all of them. I went to King's House to serve the papers on her. They didn't allow me to get close, but I went in and they took it from me. Yes. So we're championing this thing. I've referred to her on many occasions, in many writings. I've referred to her as the white whore of Babylon. They don't like her. Yes. Wow. Yes. And that is how I see her, yeah.
Yes.
So, and my brother.
What was the charge? What charge did you bring against her? What was your...
for all the crimes that she and the family have done against the enslavement of my people. A history right down the line, starting from 1665. I outline it, come right up, the numerous laws that were passed that dehumanize black people. So anything that represents enslavement and colonialism, we completely condemn. So when I read in the Gleaner, where the Gleaner talk about her great legacy and all of that. What rubbish? What great legacy? You murder black people. You get the riches of black people. You don't even think of giving us any form of reparations. Right? And the Gleaner is going to talk about her rich legacy. Oh, they are treacherous.
So clearly, Mr. Lorne, those who are leading our establishment, from the Prime Minister, the opposition leader, the justices, the media elites, the PSOJ elites, they're all a part of maintaining the colonial system in Jamaica. They want the system that way.
They're in collusion.
Yes.
They're in collusion. That's why the PSOJ and all of them give so much money to the PNP and the JLP. You know, and try to do. It's not that persons doing the well and all of that. In the first, in the elections in 1929, when the Honorable Marcus Garvey formed the People's Political Party, the People's Political Party, at that time, the legislature was made up of parish seats. You vote by parish. The party, the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party, through they won the Hanover seat. And the only reason why the Honorable Marcus Garvey and others did not win more was because at that time they deliberately tied property to the vote. If you didn't have property, you couldn't vote. So the mass of people, though in favor of the Honorable Marcus Garvey and the other candidates, they could not vote and so on. But to give you an idea, when the Honorable Marcus Garvey in 1929 ran in the parish council election in the Almontown division, and so as to sabotage him, they brought up this case from America, where some people which he had employed were claiming that he did not pay them, and all sort of concoction from America brought down here. The case down here was championed by Maurice Cargill's father, who was a lawyer at the time. And so shortly before that 1929 local government election, they imprisoned Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, for 3 months. Yet the people of Almontown, and I'll never forget and I'll always be grateful to them, the people of Almontown said, oh, we can't lock him up, but we are still going to vote for him. And they voted for him even whilst he was in prison. And despite the Gleaner endorsing the other candidate, I think his name was Beecher or something like that, the other candidate that won against him, the Gleaner came out openly and supported him and condemned Garvey. There were other big interests at that time, 1929, you know, that they printed posters and pasted up in Almontown trying to discourage the people. And the people say, we're doing business where you say. He's our leader, and anyway, they with them, they are prison, this, that. We're going to vote for him. And they voted for him. That is unprecedented in the history of Jamaica. Even after that, now, when he went to prison, when he came out, they declared the seat vacant because they said he did not attend 3 consecutive meetings of the KCC. The seat was declared vacant. They had a by-election, and he won again unopposed because their candidate this time says, if the man beat me when I'm in prison, I can't contest against him. Put him out on the road. So he won unopposed. Garvey then did work, whole heap of work, but he also did a lot of traveling. But him set back the next election now when Garvey was in England. The people them at Almontown and Woodford Park said, we're not learn. It doesn't matter whether Garvey's here or not. We're going to vote for him. So again, they voted for Garvey even when he was out of the country. But the people understand, but, you know, they use all sorts of machinations now, especially money. We have gone on the campaign trail. People like our red, gold, and green. They like our red, black, and green. They like our manifesto. They like our photographs. Lots of people in garrison areas. But they tell us straight, they said we need to give them money because that's the only way they can send their children to school tomorrow. That is what they have used over the years.
So they have done They have kept the people poor so they can control the people. And they have kept the people. They have also made sure that the people don't have the kind of education that Garvey was giving. So the people don't know that they need to liberate their minds from the control of the colonial masters. The people don't have the means. They feel that their poverty makes them committed to continuing what exists because they can't afford to change. And they also strike fear in the people, as you have seen over the years. You would have seen over the years how they've used fear of victimization to keep the Jamaican people afraid of challenging the status quo. Now, Marcus Garvey successfully challenged it. But as you saw, all of these powers, the plantocracy, the media that they controlled, and the two political parties that they eventually brought into being were used to squeeze him out and to push out the plans and to push out the agenda that he was trying to put forward, which is really about uniting the people, liberating the people, and empowering the people to be self-sufficient. Isn't that his objective? Wasn't that the Garvey objective?
Absolutely. And the irony of it, probably the most liked prime minister that Jamaica has ever had, which would be Michael Manley. When I read and examine Michael Manley's statements and policies, is Marcus Garvey him follow, straight Marcus Garvey, without saying Marcus Garvey. When you read what he says about, he had emphasized the North-South situation. The North being the developed countries, the South being the struggling countries. Michael Manley was talking about having our own ships as transportation. You understand? He was talking about empowerment of the people, and all of some of the laws that it's Garvey philosophy he was implementing. So, but like it has to come back to how do we reach the people? Mm-hmm. In a way, like I said, to make them realize that all of this is part of the trick, part of the plan to keep you begging, coming back. So the constituency offices becomes a poorhouse, right through Jamaica.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a poorhouse setting, and the money that they get is given out purely on a by vote basis, and we have got to restrict that. But there must be a way. There must be a way.
There is a way, and we're finding the way, but it's a slow way. But I want to just touch on this, the Constituency Development Fund, which is what you're speaking of. The Constituency Development Fund is really a form. It's a form of bribery. It's actually corruption being legalized. Yeah. It's legalizing vote buying, because in a well-run country, the politicians don't touch any form of money in terms of on an individual basis or constituency basis. What you would have in a properly run country, the politician is there to make laws, to represent the interest of his constituents. He's not there to be a part of any form of handout provision. What should happen is the various ministries are to be properly funded by government budget to carry out the activities separate and apart from the MP. So what you would have is the Public Works Department doing its job, the Education Ministry doing its job, the Healthcare Ministry doing its job. And once they're doing their jobs, the only role for the MP is to observe, comment on, and challenge anything which he sees that is not going right. Challenge the budget, challenge the operations of any given ministry if they're not functioning properly. Challenge, represent any constituent who feel that they have been in any form or shape, denied access or defrauded of something. But what we have instead is this Constituency Development Fund, which allows the politician to maintain the dependency handout relationship and to give them that personalized power in the constituency, which feeds this dependency and poverty, rather than ensuring that the ministries do their work, that the taxes are going where they should go. If you have a proper system, the MP will be on the back of the executive branch of government. They'll be focused on what is really happening here. Why aren't we properly using the funds collected from taxpayers to build the roads properly, to provide good schooling, to provide proper healthcare facilities, and so on? But instead, we have this CDF fund. I think it was brought in by Mr. Golden, if I'm not mistaken, and continued on by every party since then. But we really have to stop this because it's not very effective. It's building the wrong kind of culture, and it's undermining the system of governance. But let's move on.
But that's what we do, because the PATH program is a classic example. That PATH program, straight case of politician giving people, with us lunch money. That is so disgraceful. They do even pretend in the PATH program. Straight politics.
Exactly. So you're so right. But let's talk now a little bit about your court case. What happened? What was the issue where that is concerned?
The issue boiled down to, as a lawyer, I was retained by a client in England, a brother in England, to probate his father's will and to sell property and to pay up all the necessary taxes and, take my fees and give him the rest, which was what I did. I gave him the brother. He basically was in England and so on. His sister, who was in the United States, she was the one who brought complaint against me, saying that she wants her share. I gave it to it's the brother who retained me. It's the brother who instruct me and everything. You know what I mean? So I figured, and it's the brother who had promised to give her whatever she's to get. The brother and her had a dispute, because the brother was saying that when the father died or the parents died, she took the bank books. She was the one collecting the rent for the property all whilst this time. So he was of the view that she shouldn't get anything. I didn't take that view, but I said, seeing that is you retain me, I will give you the proceeds, which I did. So she brought complaint against me. Now, she not only lied, she went to the fraud squad, and the fraud squad was so glad they bring case against me, claiming that the charge that was just dismissed was fraudulent conversion, meaning that you converted the money for your own use or to the use of your friend or somebody else. You know what I mean? And this was where the Court of Appeal says, but if you give an account, I provided a statement of account from long time. I provided a statement showing how the money was spent. Now, there are different schools of thought. One school of thought was that I should not have given the brother her portion. You see what I mean? And so on. Well, they said, well, in that case, then that is negligence. That's not fraudulent, because you have given an account as to how you spend the money, and so on. The case at Taffetry shouldn't even reach. Well, the police shouldn't even charge in the first place. Having charged, the no case submission should have been upheld because the account was clear. And the judge at Taffetry said, look, she doesn't have any fault with the accounting. No fault with the accounting. But nevertheless, whilst the matter at Taffetry was going on, they brought a complaint against me within the General Legal Counsel, within the lawyers' circle. Now, me and those lawyers are enemies, because one of them in particular, one lawyer that is a three-panel jury, as it were. One of them, on one occasion, that particular lawyer, everywhere I go, people say him is a homosexual. I don't know if him is, because I don't go to them parties, I don't go to them dinners, I don't know if him is. But I asked him on one, I said, are you a homosexual? Him say, nah, answer me. He said, no, you're obliged to answer me if you put. Him say, nah, answer me, and him refused to answer me. Man refused. Him not say, yeah, nah, nah, you know. Him refused to answer me. I ask you a pointed question, and you refuse. But that is how they behave. The arrogance and all of that. It's a lawyer who's I am more experienced and older than him, you know, and I'm going to tell him not answer me. So, and I don't know if you all realize, but there's a lot of them in the legal profession, both on the female and the male side. And I don't see how you, because the first law is the law of life. And if you are practicing something which cannot give life, you should not be a lawyer. You should, worst of all, you should not be in judgment over other people. And I am on record in the newsprint, on the television, and on the radio, condemning homosexual and lesbian. I don't mince words when it comes on to that. I don't advocate for anybody to go kill them. No, don't do that. But on the other hand, they should realize that you are violating the laws of nature, the laws of the universe, the laws of the creator, and you stay far from people. Worst of all, you shouldn't be in judgment over others. And it's people like those that now disbarred, and then I appeal, and the appeal court say no. The most they would go is a suspension, and so on. But those are the type of thing. But like I said, I give you the history that from a long time, they find all sorts of things and a little chop and change and all of that. But we're warriors. We have the spirit of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. We're warriors.
So in other words, the disbarment aspect of it was really somebody trying to, see if they could disrupt your career for other reasons other than the case itself. The case didn't have any merit, but they sought to find some avenue by which to see if they could disbar you, because they didn't really want you to be a lawyer in the first place.
Because we're not the run-up to me lawyer. We take up a lot of cases on behalf of poor people.
Yeah.
A lot of cases over the years. And then on top of it, we go sue the Queen of England, which is for them God. Whoa.
So let me ask you something. On the matter now of the so-called fraudulent conversion, you initially lost the case. This was at what you appealed. Who did you appeal to? What court did you appeal to?
The Jamaica Court of Appeal.
Oh, Jamaica Court of Appeal. So you appealed to. So you were convicted on one level. Help us to understand this. You were convicted on one level. Who convicted you? What court was that?
That was the court at Half a Tree at the parish level.
The parish level.
If you could just hold on 1 second, I see where my battery getting low. So let me plug in some.
Go ahead. Yes, my friend. So we're just getting a little handle here, trying to understand what is it that really caused Miguel Lorne to be disbarred? What is it that caused them to convict him of fraudulent conversion in the first place, and how he managed to reverse that at the Court of Appeal. And in the process of talking about that, we're learning more about, how he has been received in the legal fraternity and what efforts and attempts have been made to either discredit him or to deny him the right to fully practice law in Jamaica. Now, he brought up the question of homosexuality. I want to get a better understanding of that, hear what's going on there, why he asked the person that question and why that was important. And of course, we also hear his personal views on the subject matter, which I think, we're all entitled to have a personal view. And he made it clear that he's not advocating any form of violence against those who wish to practice something contrary to natural law. But at the same time, we want to understand, to what extent, he is concerned about that. So it looked like we've lost him. But this was the newspaper article in the Gleaner. Court of Appeal overturns fraud conviction against attorney Miguel Lorne. The article says that the Court of Appeal has overturned the fraudulent conversion conviction of attorney at law Michael Lorne in relation to the sale of a property in eastern Kingston. There was no fraudulent and dishonest misuse of proceeds for the sale, the court ruled on Friday. I feel vindicated, Lorne said. He has always maintained that he was innocent. He was represented on appeal by his son, attorney at law, Michael Lorne. Lorne, also known as Lorne, was convicted in October of 2020 and ordered to pay a fine of $750,000 or spend 12 months in prison. He was disbarred by the disciplinary committee of the General Counsel, GCL, in June 2017, complaints relating to the allegations for which he was convicted. But the Court of Appeal set aside the disbarment on March 2021 and ruled that he should instead be suspended from practice for 5 years. The suspension ended in June this year, which is interesting because it was 5 years. Anyway, the GLC is appealing to the United Kingdom-based Privy Council in an effort to have the disbarment restored. So they want to restore the disbarment. Lorne, a Rastafarian, was retained between 2000 and 2005 to probate a will in which was a house for which Olive Blake and Herb Wilson were the beneficiaries. Lorne was instructed to sell the property and the proceeds shared equally between the beneficiaries as stated in the will. The complainant, Olive Blake, said the property was sold in 2011 for $6 million, but she did not receive her share of the proceeds. She made a complaint to the GLC in 2012 alleging that Lorne had failed to account for the funds he had for her. Lorne then contacted her by letter informing her that he sent her portion of the proceeds to her brother, retained him, and instructed him to send the proceeds to her. In his defense, Lorne had denied the allegation that he fraudulently converted any of the proceeds. He relied on the statement of account that he had sent to Blake's lawyer, which showed he had made significant changes in relation to the probate and the sale of the property. The Court of Appeal ruled on Friday that it agreed with the parish judge that Lorne was dilatory in accounting to the complainant as well as paying over the balance of the net proceeds as per the statement of account. While dilatoriness and lack of explanation for delay may raise a presumption of fraudulent conversion, the authorities confirm that presumption is susceptible to rebuttal by the provision of a satisfactory account from the accused, which we have found in the instant case. As a result, the prima facie evidence of fraudulent conversion was refuted by the satisfactory account the appellant gave about the proceeds entrusted to him, and any specter of fraudulent conversion of those proceeds had long vanished by the conclusion of the trial, the court ruled. The court found that the prosecution had failed to prove an essential ingredient of the offense of fraudulent conversion. That is, the fraudulent and dishonest misuse of the proceeds realized from the sale of the property by the appellant. In addition, there was also a misapprehension of the applicable law by the lawyer of the parish court, resulting in incorrect findings of fact. The verdict, therefore, is against the weight of the evidence, and the appellant's conviction is unsustainable. The court ordered that the sum of $750,000, which Lorne paid as a fine after he was convicted, must be refunded. Yeah. So there you have it. Quite clear. The man was wrongly convicted. And what is interesting is that the judge really should not have found him guilty in the first place of any fraudulent conversion. But such is what we face in this country. Can you imagine if the man couldn't really defend himself properly? Probably would be in prison for 12 months. But let's hear some more. Welcome back, Mr. Lorne.
Yeah, greetings and blessings. We managed to plug in and
Wonderful.
Ready to roll again.
We got some juice in there. Excellent. So,
yes.
We have a good understanding of the case, and we're glad that you have been able to vindicate yourself. And now you're still faced with some possibility of your disbarment, what do you call it now? Of them overturning the fact that you are not disbarred. Is that the case? Can you hear me? Okay, look like you're frozen. Are you back with me, Mr. Lorne? Okay, look like he's frozen there for a bit. Okay, let's hope that his internet connection gets resolved. Comments in the space. Let's see what we have in terms of comments from our viewers here. Liddy Williams says class is in session. Good night. Good night, Liddy. Good to see you on. Good night to you as well, JMH. Let's see if we have any interesting questions or comments. Josephine says we're all watching. Touch the thumbs up button, please. Thank you. Share live. Share, everyone. There's a gentleman on the live. I think it's Demel, who is giving some trouble. Yes, Craig, it's good to hear how the justice system works. What is Demel giving trouble about now? Let's see. Let me see here. All right, so lots of support for the UIC. Thanks to all of you. Devereaux is saying combine the UIC and the PPP. Devereaux, we're open, to joining forces with all Jamaicans who want a better Jamaica. So whatever your group may be called, as long as you share the core values of the movement and want, what we stand for, then, all groups are welcome. So the PPP is welcome to join us, and we're happy to work with them if they want, the same thing that we want. I think they do. I think, all Jamaicans want good governance, right? Well, at least those who are not benefiting from the corrupt system as it is. Those who want to keep it that way is because they're benefiting from it and, are not ethical and moral enough to want a system that is just and equitable for all Jamaicans. The PPP, unfortunately, is not a registered political party right now. I don't think they have been able to make the requirements yet to become a registered political party. Well, Craig, what they're trying to do is, it seems as though they're looking for a reason to disbar him. They don't have a strong reason, so they were happy for this case, and they tried to bend the law and bend the situation to suit their purposes. And clearly, based on the case in question, he could have handled it a little bit differently. So, for example, it would have been advisable for him to, take extra care to see to it that the sister got her share separate and apart from the brother, and not allow it to become a case where, all was sent to this one person and then that person was supposed to send out the difference. So that would be, let's call it a mistake, an error in judgment, but definitely not fraud, and definitely not worthy of him being disbarred. There are people who have done worse than that who they have not disbarred, and so on. Yeah. So Deborah is asking, will we eventually have a podcast? I hope so. You want to come and help us set it up? We'd love to get the help. Craig, you're correct. The sister did not hire him. But if he was aware, though, of the will and clear about what the will stated, which I think he was based on what I've read, then as the lawyer, he should have taken precaution to ensure that he's respecting the will, if it's a legal will, a binding will, and one which he has properly taken through the probate process. So, the will is important, yes, and we have to pay attention to that. Damien says, what? A sell vote when I buy. Thank you. Yes, 3 grand a road. Absolutely not. So you understand now, Craig. That's good. I could help set agendas and suggest people to be interviewed. Thank you, Deborah. Well, we have that part covered, It's more, some technical part. But anyways, do volunteer. If you haven't yet volunteered on the system, please do so. Reach out to Douglas and see if you can be, plugged into the process. Yeah. But it doesn't appear as if Mr. Lorne is going to make it back on. I'm not seeing him right now to continue the conversation. I wanted to get into now some discussion with him about the Caribbean Court of Justice and the Privy Council to get his views on that. The UIC is very, what do you say now? We're not really looking forward to joining the CCJ in its current form. And we're definitely not willing to continue with the Privy Council. As you know, we want to make Jamaica into a true republic, which would make us completely separate and apart from the colonial system, no longer sharing the Commonwealth with any other country. But we are interested in creating a federation, if you will, of the Caribbean states and becoming, one nation with different provinces. Jamaica is a province, Barbados is a province, and Trinidad. But having one united Caribbean state, if you will, and subsequent to that, creating a united States of Africa and having the Caribbean as part of that United States of Africa, if you will, and becoming tightly bonded by governance, by military, by laws. But we're far away from that. Right now, our biggest issue is actually winning government here in Jamaica and getting the opportunity to convert Jamaica into a real, true republic, one where the sovereignty of every citizen is fully respected, and one where the government actually provides every Jamaican with the safe environment that they need in order to achieve their full potential, with a very clean, beautiful environment, manicured environment from east to west and north to south, so that we can really have pride again in ourselves as a people and in the way we manage and maintain our country, and ensuring we have good public order so that we can operate very efficiently and effectively as a nation. So we're really looking forward to that. It's not easy. The way to get there is to overcome the various obstacles that are in our way, whether it be, the media blockade, having the capital, the cash to spend in traveling, communicating, engaging with the people of Jamaica at the various levels. So we're working on that, and we're making headways slowly but surely. Maurice says, good evening, Mr. President. I would like to get my 2 shirts. I forgot to pick them up from the car in halfway tree. How can I get them? A polo and the button-up one. All right, Maurice, very, very easy. Just call the number, right? We have this number here, these two numbers. Just call these two numbers and speak with whoever answers, and make arrangement with them. The shirts can be mailed to you, for example. All right. So let's see if we can get that going. Yeah. Bruce Davis says, sorry for the late school. Bruce, you're very late, but you missed the discussion that I was having with Miguel Lorne. Really bright man, I like him. He's a good fellow. I really, hope we have a chance to chat some more, because I wanted to get into more of his thoughts and ideas and stuff. I must tell you that I'm a little concerned about the approach that he has taken to the issue of the homosexuality bit. And I know that's a taboo subject and people are afraid, of it. I'm not afraid to go there. The UIC's position is very, very simple. We respect the rights of everybody to choose what they want to do with their own lives, as long as they do not use force or fraud to infringe on the lives of others. And by protecting everybody's rights, we protect our people also from anybody forcing on us through our school system or through our government any lifestyle that they think they would like to impose upon the Jamaican people. So we're not going to get into any kind of fight with anybody about their sexual orientation. We're not into that. We're not into, the UIC respects your right as an individual to choose, but we don't necessarily subscribe to your choice. People are going to make choices that you and I may not agree with. For example, I'm a vegetarian. I don't intend to impose that on anybody. Everybody must choose what they want to do, in terms of what they want to put into their bodies, what they want to eat, what they want to drink. I will encourage you to adopt what I think are good practices, but it's not my job as an individual or as part of any group or government to seek to force my choice on anybody else. What I want to do is to make sure that you live in a country that protects your right to choose for yourself, that protects your space. So I want us to have a country where you're free to do what you want with your own personal life, with your own time or freedom, and with your own property, provided in doing so, you're not using force or fraud to infringe on the life, the liberty, or the property rights of somebody else. So government then is going to shift away from trying to impose, values of those types on anyone. What you're going to find is that we're going to create, for example, an economy that really allows the poorest among us to be as successful as they can be as quickly as possible, because there won't be any artificial impediments or boundaries that protects big business while oppressing small business. You're going to have an enabling environment. So as an entrepreneur, you'll have no problem getting a bank account, no problem accessing capital from different sources, no problem setting up your business quickly without a lot of red tape, and being able to get into business and offer whatever product or service you want to offer, provided, very important, you're not using force or fraud to achieve anything. So you can sell your product, but you can't force anybody to buy it, and you can't defraud anybody into buying it. You can't mislabel your product or misrepresent your product to anybody, So, I think Miguel is coming back now. Yeah. So good. So here we go. Let's see if we can get back.
Yes.
All right. Welcome back, brother.
Yes, I had to borrow one of my children's phone.
No problem. Welcome back.
They're more advanced. Mine is behind time.
No problem. That's as we go through the journey of life, we're blessed with two things: either wisdom or youth. And you now are at the stage where you have the wisdom and you're benefiting from your children who still have the youth. That's all.
Yes, but still holding on because my chess table set up right out there. You know, we play a lot of chess. We always play chess here. And I still can beat some of them.
Okay. Well, one of these I will take you up on it and see. I used to play chess in my younger days. So I'll challenge you to a game one of these days. All right.
Yes.
So let's continue. Where were we? I wanted now to look a little bit on your views on the CCJ and the Privy Council. What are your thoughts on those?
You can't talk about independence and you're still going to the Privy Council. You must have control over all aspects of your life, politically, legally, economically, you know, socially. You must run your destiny. So you can't talk about you're independent and you are going to the Privy Council. The irony of it, though, you know, is that with some of those judges at the Privy Council being divorced from the immediate political machinations that take place here in our judicial structure in Jamaica, in a lot of instances, they tend to give you a fairer judgment than what you get here. But I say, you can't let that be your benchmark to keep going there. If you must spot the problems here, face the problems here, and work on ironing out the problems here. Because you will always be going to the white man. You will say that you're not going to make shoes in Jamaica because he make better shoes, he make better clothes, he put on better plays. You're going to keep doing that. You must get out the chinks out of your armor here, solve the problem, and we'll move forward. So I'm totally against the Privy Council being retained. They have done their course, and I'm all in favor of the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final court of appeal.
Okay, so basically the Privy Council at the moment continues to give us, in your opinion, and mine as well, sometimes fairer judgment. But the solution is not to continue to go to them. The solution is really to find out, why do we have a system so corrupt that it can cause us to not have justice from our justice system? And so we have to correct the problems, the checks and balances problem. One of the ways the UIC wants to address this, and let me hear what your thoughts are on this. The UIC system of governance, which we call a non-partisan constitutional republic, it creates a new structure in government. First of all, we have a 100% publicly funded campaign system. So in this system, no candidate can or has to take funds from any private source, not even from his own pocket. So all candidates will be funded equally, not so much by giving them money, but by giving them access. So when you go through to be a candidate in the UIC system, when we are elected government and we change the system, you first of all have to pass some exams to show that you understand how government works, what good governance is. You know, you have a reasonable understanding of history and civics and, you know, the basics, the stuff you need to function as a legislator. Once you have gone through that process and you've been able to go in your community now and get some people to sign off as nominators. And when they sign off as nominators on you, just a small number, relatively speaking, these persons are literally giving you their vote. So it has to be taken seriously. They're not just nominating you and then go vote otherwise. They're giving up their right to vote for another candidate. So they have to be serious. Now, once you have passed these two stages, you now are given equal access to radio, television, internet, town hall meetings, and debates. So anywhere we're having a debate, you're invited, you're provided with transportation, clothing if you need it, whatever you need to be on equal footing with the other candidates, so that the people can hear from you. So let's say you're a poor man now living in Timbuktu, you will have the same access as a rich man living up at Beverly Hills who says he wants to run for office. He will have no advantage over you, and you will have no disadvantage, except that both of you will be judged now by the content of your message and your character by those who are going to look at you and make a decision on that. So that's number one. Number two, senators will now be elected instead of being appointed by the leaders of their respective parties. So you're going to have elected senators, 14, one for each parish. And those who make up the Senate and those who make up the House of Representatives, they cannot be ministers of government. You'll have only some experts, persons who are qualified and competent in the area that you're going to appoint them to serve as ministers. So the executive branch of government, which will be the president elected by the people, 3 vice presidents, 1 for each county, the general secretary and treasury secretary who would have run on the same ticket as the president, they form the nucleus of the executive, will nominate qualified Jamaicans from anywhere in the world. Once they're qualified to serve in this capacity, the Senate would vet them publicly, and the House would then vote to appoint them or not. You're going to have a separation of the executive from the House and a separation of the House and the Senate from each other. And so they can now, in a tripartite way, provide proper oversight for each other. The same process will be used to appoint judges. And remember now, because of the way the electoral system works, no big money is controlling the process anymore. Each of those reps are free and empowered to fully represent the people that put them there, because they have no other recourse but to do so. What are your thoughts on that?
Brilliant. Very good. Very, very good. This now would be elected by the people. Yes. What I would want to see is that, for example, a parish judge who is going to, say, St. Thomas to work, or parish, whoever is going to be the parish judge there, then the people of St. Thomas should be the one to elect that judge. So you have 3 or 4 persons vying for the position. The people know. Similarly in Manchester, similarly in St. James, the people, in my view, should have some say as to who should be the judge, especially the parish judge, in all instances. I think you would get better decision. The parish judge is more connected and be nearer to the people, and it will make a big difference.
Right.
When I go to do jury trials, when I do jury trials in Manchester, St. Thomas, all over, and you are dealing with the local people there, it makes a big difference. Because in a lot of instances, they know not even say court. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They know mother and father, you know, true character. In Jamaica, as we have it now, it's a deliberate strategy to be above the people. They think that they dispense justice. They don't go to Coronation Market. They try not to mingle at the places the people go and all. It's a deliberate thing to make you feel important and so on. So once must give a say in as to how I do it. But all the other aspects that you mentioned,
yeah, I like the thought you're giving here now. What you're saying is, while a judge is a very important position, a very important role, and somebody who must be pretty au fait with the law and be able to dispense justice effectively, at the same time, this person needs to have some affiliation with the community, with the society that they're, you know, working for, and not to be seen as better than and separate from the people, but be a part of the people themselves. They can understand the nuances of what's happening and bring that to bear somewhat in you know, carrying out their work as a judge. And the same thing for jury. I mean, the jury are a jury of peers, right? They're people who are familiar with what's happening in this society and can relate to what's going on and help to make a good decision. So I like that idea. Electing judges is interesting, because what I'm a little concerned about now is them being somewhat politicized, meaning even in truth and in fact, almost everybody is politicized one way or the other, because politics is really about us making decisions as a community. So we shouldn't really see it as being a bad thing. So you know what? You have a good point. I like it. We will definitely look at it and see if we can incorporate that effectively into our policy. We lost the goodly gentleman again. Wow, that's a pity. That's a pity. All right, so Damien says, so right now getting a bank account is rigorous. How will the UIC manage these restrictions that the banks now have in place? Well, the UIC is going to change the banking system. We're going to go to a system called free banking. And what we mean by free banking is that you're now going to have an environment that will make banking truly competitive. So you're now going to have more banking options, lower cost of doing banking because of these more options. You're going to have greater versatility and diversity in the marketplace that allows the poor people to actually come together and create banking options for themselves. And the system will be designed to allow them to do that. Right now, the banking regulations are designed to push us out of the sector, and we can only be a consumer of whatever product a small group of oligarchs or banking cartels put together and say, this is what we can access. The UIC is going to change that completely. In terms of our relationships on the international scene, as an accountant, I can tell you that much of what they're trying to do globally is not really to improve banking for us, the people. It is to maintain a system of banking that allows them to rob the people. So we're going to address these issues in a very diplomatic way, in a very forthright way, and we're going to provide solutions to the world that will challenge the approach that they're taking and show that we can actually have good banking solutions that does not require the kind of injustices that we've been seeing in the banking sector. So in Jamaica, having a bank account will become a right. It will be just as basic as you having a birth certificate or a driver's license or a national identification, right? Which we all should have. So you're going to have banking as a normal part of your life. As soon as you're a child, you can have a bank account. And of course, with your parents as custodians until you get to the age of majority. But it will be a norm in the new Jamaica. There will no longer be an issue with a bank account at all. Yeah. All right. So let's see. Mr. Lorne is back with us.
Yes.
All right, welcome back, sir.
Yeah. That was internet problem. Because of the weather, it has been going and coming all day.
Yeah, man, I fully understand. No problem. All right. So let's talk now
of examining that governance structure which you have mentioned.
Yes,
I like it. I like it because you know, we're moving from what the colonialists left here.
Absolutely.
Even if it doesn't work certain way, we can, as we go along and learn, we can amend, we can interject, you know, but at least we are coming up with something from our own lines from our own
Exactly.
brains and so on, which is
Yeah,
what you're injecting in people's thinking, you know, so that the people can add to that, you know,
Yeah.
and help us to make it better. So it's good. It's good that you're injecting new ideas.
Absolutely. And I mean, we began first of all by looking at the premise on which you build a government. And Jamaicans on a whole, we don't necessarily have it's not been a part of our education system where we teach our people and children to look at governance. It's not something that we talked about in primary school and talked about in secondary school and at the university level. So we don't talk so much about governance and how do we govern ourselves. So the UIC wants us to have that dialogue, have that conversation, and then say at the very beginning what was wrong with what we had before. The current constitution that we have, we know it wasn't we who wrote it. It was given to us. We know that
it's embarrassing. The present constitution is so embarrassing. Bustamante and Norman Manley went to England and came up with that concocted document. It did not have come from the bowels of the people.
Yes, absolutely not. No, in fact, the Jamaican people had no idea what was being foisted upon them. They had no idea. They were just simply, they trusted these two white men or half white men. They trusted them. I mean, people would follow Bustamante till they died, and others saw Norman Manley as the man with the plan, and they just trusted them. They had no real appreciation for what these two men were doing. What they were doing, was they were in a skillful manner ensuring that the system of wage slavery was maintained, that we didn't disrupt the colonial model of master-slave economics. People would, for the most part, the majority of us were going to be kept down, and a few was going to be kept as the elite that amassed the wealth and left most of the people out. But find ways to keep them quiet, placate them, put a soda in their mouth whenever they're becoming too agitated. So that's what these two men and their parties were there for. They've done a brilliant job, They've actually succeeded. I mean, they've succeeded, the constitution we have, the two parties that we have, they have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams to do exactly what they were intended to do. They've made it right now. It's hard work for us now to bring the mind of people to the level they need to be at. Very hard work to pull them up and to help them to see clearly. But we're doing that. And so the governance model the UIC is proposing is one where we tell the people, you're sovereign. We're moving you up at the top. You're now the sovereign. There's no sovereign greater than you. There's no queen. There's no king. Each and every one of you are sovereign in and of yourself. You have a right to be here, and you have rights that have been violated. One of them is your property rights. So we have to now help the people to get back what was stolen from them, one of which is the basics. You must have property. If you don't have property, you are disadvantaged to the hill, and that is why property was so important. That's why you have crown lands. That's why they made sure that when they so-called abolished slavery, they made sure that the common man and woman did not have property, and to get your hand on property was a difficult task. What are your thoughts on that?
No, fully agree that it was a deliberate strategy. Coming from that time, and many of our people are still landless. And the thing about land, you can't live in the air. You can't live in the air. You must live on the land. So when a man dictate now how you live, that was a tremendous drawback for our African, minded people. Yes. And any government now must make that a focal point. The aspect you mentioned regarding teaching governance. You see, in Jamaica, once you talk anything like that, It's politics. And once
Yeah.
you say politics, the average Jamaican don't particularly like that word and so on, because he has seen so much corruption. He has come from a garrison where gunshot fire by day and by night. So politics means blood, bullet, and bodies. That's what politics
Yeah.
mean in Jamaica.
Yeah. And
It's
corruption. Yes. Yes.
a lot of
Absolutely.
corruption behind it and all of that. So as a result of that, now, like you said, now we want to get them in a frame of mind of governance. How do
What is
we
good
govern
governance?
ourselves?
Yes.
And that we don't have to follow what we have now. We don't have to, because the mentality of the people is that if it's not JLP, it's PNP. If it's not PNP, you know, so you just swap it. The corruption.
And they don't understand, and Miguel, they don't understand what governance is. They think governance is just voting. They don't understand that governance is much bigger than voting, because right now, voting in Jamaica is meaningless if who you vote for is predetermined for you. Yeah, right? The system is designed so that the rich oligarchs, the PSOJ oligarchs, they control who you can vote for, right? I know in our constitution it says, and in our electoral process it says anybody can put themselves up and say, I want to be a candidate. They can get a few nominators and they're on the ballot. But it's more than that. It's more than that, because the truth and in fact is, if you can't communicate with the electorate, if you don't have access to communicating with the electorate, you have no hope. So even though you're on the ballot, if you don't have the resources to be able to communicate with the electorate, you're hopeless. So what does it mean? It means that those who fund the candidates are deciding for the rest of Jamaica who can be a candidate. And that is why the UIC is changing the system, because we want to make sure that it's not who fund the candidates who decide. We want to make sure that the decision is a community-based one. And that is why, for example, in the UIC model, the MP has to, our councillor has to live in the community that they wish to represent, right? They can't be in Kingston and represent a community in St. Elizabeth. They have to live there. So you have to be a part of the...
So that he will, if the rivers come down and flooded, he has to cross it just like the ordinary citizen. Exactly. If the bridge breaks down, he has to. If there's a problem at the school, his child is there. Agree with you. Yes, that's a perfect model.
So once you have the MP and the councillors, for example, being a part of the community now, and once they cannot take any money from anybody, nobody at all. So let's say one of the biggest companies in Jamaica wanted to get a particular law passed in their favor. It would be illegal for them to give 1 cent to a candidate. And it would be illegal for a candidate to take 1 cent from them. What this means now is that the candidate knows that the only way he's going to win an election is by the quality of his representation of the people in his constituency. No other way. And he also knows that if he takes $1 from anybody, he can't even spend it on the campaign, because there's nothing to spend on, because we have changed the campaign model so that it's not the money that you have, it's the access that you're given. And all candidates are given equal access. So let's say you and me run, Mr. Lorne. Both of us decide we want to run for president of Jamaica. Wonderful. What the people are going to do now, they're going to see me and you on the same platform. You get the same amount of time on radio. I get the same amount of time. TV, internet, town hall, debates. So when we go to the debates, you will show up, I will be there. So the people now, it's not the fanfare now on who can put on the best dub plate and who can pay money and get the most flashy ads. All of those things are now taken out of the electoral process. And it comes down to the content of your message, your ability to deliver that message, and whether or not the people find your character to be suitable based on what they have seen and heard from you. And a part of the process we have is that you're fact-checked. So after you have made your pronouncements, mine and yours, we have an audit committee that fact-checks what we have said, and we avoid the character assassinations and focus on the issues. And now you have a new Jamaica, an issues-based. It's going to change the minds of the people, because the people now are not being wazzle-dazzled by all of this foolishness. It is now zeroing the mind on, because the real distinguishing mark now, is what is the content of what he's really saying? What is the essence of this? Because now it's not about JLP or PNP anymore, or green or orange or anything. It's now down to the candidates themselves without any other frills getting in the way. And so Jamaica is going to be on a very different path after that, because now you're going to have a microscopic process that zeroes in on the issues. Yeah? You have the House of Representatives now, which is fully focused on representing the people. You have the Senate that's fully focused on representing the parish. And you have the executive branch that will be under the microscope now from these two sides, right? Focused on how are you spending the people's money? How much tax revenues came in? What, and if you have to pass this budget. You have to present a budget to the House now where it's not based on your party having a majority, in the House and it just get passed. It's now about serious negotiation, serious, demonstration of why you want to do this or that, and then having a vote in both the lower house and the upper house, as they call it now, to say, does this go forward? And because every parish has one vote, you now have to have serious trade-offs. No parish now will be left out of the scheme. So St. Thomas won't be left out anymore, because they will have one vote in the Senate, yeah, just like St. Andrew and just like Kingston. While the House of Representatives now, of course, will be based on, population, in terms of deciding on the different boundaries. But you're going to have that balancing element coming from the Senate. And the fact that the executive branch now is completely separate and apart from the two legislative branches, you're going to have better outcomes. At least that's what I'm seeing from my analysis. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and because every year, just to support that and to give you two examples, every year we have that fish kill in the Rio Cobra and in the Black River because of the chemical substance that is pushed out by that sugar place down there in St. Elizabeth and by the bauxite company in the Bogwalk area. Every year, an endless amount of fish die from it. Nothing is done because it's two big companies that give them a lot of money, and they don't know how to tell them, say, look, the fish is such an important livelihood for the people in that community, both as them income, both as them food, so many other aspects of it. Every year the same thing. A tremendous amount of fish die based on the affluent that they push out in the river. So, and because they finance so much things with these people, that's why they can get away with it. So I'm in agreement that anything that can make that person be treated on the same level as the humble little man, it would go a long way. And therefore now, you see, I come back to the law because I work with the law and I study law daily. Therefore now, laws will be made not so much as to the aspect of it as to how it affects certain people. Since 2013, Brother Heru Ishaka Musa Menelik wrote to the government and pointed out to them that the security guards should be treated as employees, not as contract workers, independent contract workers. Since 2013, we have been championing that cause. And see, just last Friday, the Court of Appeal ruled that, yes, the security guards are employees, not independent contract workers, and so on.
And it took that long. It took that long for us.
It
My
took
goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it's a pity.
some to laws being passed to protect certain people, not the average humble little man on the road and so on. So,
Well,
um, hearing some of these things that you have mentioned for the time, it sounds good, and my brain has been going to make sure, and like I said, certainly in terms of the laws that are passed, you have a whole heap of colonial for the books that they still
absolutely.
use over us.
That's why
You have a whole heap of that.
that's why what we're going to do, Mr. Lorne, we're not going to try to amend the Constitution. We're just going to replace it. So we're going to have a new Constitution. We're going to vote. So the way the UIC is going to tackle this problem, in our first year of government, we're going to go through a process of completing the draft of a Constitution. We already did our own work, but we want to make sure we invite the rest of Jamaica involved. And the first year, we're going to complete the draft with inputs from all sides of Jamaica. We're going to have town hall meetings with the people, all 14 parishes, all 63 constituencies, all 228 voting divisions at the parish level. And after we have gone through this process of consultation with the people, getting feedback, having a Constitution Commission that takes all of this in, and then we're going to have a national referendum where the people are going to vote on adopting or rejecting the Constitution as presented, which would completely wipe out all things colonial. For example, we're moving to an Afrocentric education system in the new dispensation. We're doing away with all the relics of the colonial past, no queen, no crown land, no whatever. So we're going to have a mass referendum on this. Once that's done, we now have a transition period where let's say we do that in our first year, our first 2 years in office. We still have 3 years left on the old Constitution. That 3-year period now is to complete all the regulations and then have our first election under the new Constitution at the end of that 5-year term, where the people will now vote for their president directly, 3 vice presidents from the county that will form the nucleus of the executive, and now we'll have our local elections as well, and we'll move on from there with a new Jamaica. But I must get you back on in to talk, because there's so much more to talk about this, and we've run out of time. I only have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to say thank you, Mr. Lorne, for sharing your time with us tonight. And based on the comments, I am sure our viewers would like to have you on again. So I will bring you back. And I see people saying that the UIC and the PPP should merge. So we'll continue to have those dialogues. All right?
Yes. Oh, yes. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to hear some of these thinking. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to some of your listeners to the program. I really am very grateful. And I think such, I don't like dialogue, such interlogue can only do good for Jamaica.
Absolutely.
Blessings and honor.
My pleasure. Have a good night. Thanks again. Take care.
Every time.
Bye-bye. Okay. All right, my friends. So that was a good chat with our good friend, Mr. Lorne. We could talk all night, but we don't have all the time in the world. There's one comment here I want to talk about before we go out tonight. It's a very important comment. Deborah Williams, he says, Mr. Patterson, some people do not agree with the education not being government funded. Why is the UIC going in a different direction, asking for a friend? One of the most important things you see, Deborah, is leaders have to lead. You can't do everything based on the immediate emotional response of people. So my job as a thought leader is to bring new thought and new thinking to the fore and encourage everyone to participate in the discussion and the dialogue, and then see where we go from there. Having studied politics and economics for a number of years as a self-taught student, I realized that our education system has been used as a tool to manipulate the people, in fact, to destroy the people. You might recall that in slavery, one of the key elements that the slave master used to control the slave was education. And in that time, it was the lack of education. They made sure you couldn't read, you couldn't write, and you couldn't compute, right? Compute. And so they tried to prevent the slave from learning. Now, after that dispensation of slavery was passed, the new dispensation is not to prevent the slave from learning, but to decide what the slave will learn. So we have moved from chattel slavery, that's the one where you work entirely for free, so to speak, and they chain you and they whip you, to a different form of slavery where now you're made to feel as though, or to think as though you are free, but you're not free. And so they create laws and regulations and structures, including what they call public education or free education, where they then use that to shackle you. They shackle the mind, they shackle you economically by the economic model and policies, they shackle you in terms of your healthcare choices, they shackle you in terms of limiting your rights and freedom to what they think you can do, and you have to get permission for just about everything. We, the UIC, we have developed a different model of education. So the model is not based on the simplistic thought that, oh, the best thing you can do for a society is by having government tax everybody, take the money from them, and then force them to go into one educational model, and that's the end of it. The UIC wants the people to have options. So you must have an education system that is diverse. In what ways? It must allow the parents to be able to choose what they want their children to learn, generally speaking. Of course, we're going to protect the rights of students by making sure some core elements, some core things are there. Every child needs to learn to be able to read and to write and to do basic computation, of course. But beyond that, we want to make sure the child also understand themselves, understand human behavior, and understand how money and economics work, so they can make good, sound decisions, when they leave school and even while they're in school. But we don't want to create or continue the system now where government gets to dictate what children learn. Right now, the government of Jamaica is trying to dictate everything. They want to control who can be a teacher. So they're going to control the teachers, right? And when you control the teachers, you control what the teachers can teach. And they also want to block others out of the market. So if there is somebody who hasn't gone through their system and hasn't agreed to do what they want you to do, but that person is quite skilled and able to teach, and parents would like to trust their children with that person, they want to block them out of the market. It's a system that they're creating in every area. Healthcare, they want to control healthcare, so only the kind of medicine and those practitioners who are going to prescribe and carry out those kind of medicines, they want only that to be your medical option, which is no option at all, right? It's not an option. You only can do this. Finances, they've done the same thing. They've blocked out of the market anybody who will teach you or give you alternative financial information. They want them to be illegal and say the person must have gone through the system they want them to go through, and will only tell you what they want them to tell you. And so you're going to have one set of financial planners and financial advice, and they lock you into a system. They even limit what you can do for your pension. How can you save and invest for your pension? They create laws to restrict you. You can only invest in certain vehicles and through certain channels and follow certain prescribed methods and no more. And so they want to lock you off. The same with education. They want to be able to teach your children exactly what they want your children to learn. Not what you want them to learn, not your values, They want to teach them their values and what they want your children to learn. The UIC is against that. We believe in freedom. We believe in your right to choose. And so I want an education model that puts the power back in the hands of the parents without disenfranchising the child. So we want to protect the child as well, so the parent can't, abuse the child or neglect the child or do something crazy with the child, but at the same time must have the freedom to choose the avenues of education that they want. So in the UIC Jamaica, you're going to have schools that meets the needs of children. You're going to have special schools. You're going to have, they're not going to be special. They're just going to be different, So you're going to have schools, let's say you have a high school that wants to focus on a sports-based curriculum. As long as parents want that are willing to send their children there, they'll be funded because the money will follow the child, as opposed to the child being dictated, the parents be dictated to where the child goes. So the government will fund any child and every child who needs government assistance. Okay? And the government will not dictate where the child goes. The government will regulate the education space to make sure that where the child goes is safe, that the program is as advertised, and therefore the parent is getting what they signed up for, what they bargained for, and the child is getting a decent education, not necessarily the one that you may want for other people's children. So you may be a Christian, for example, and you want every child to be taught Christianity. No. Another parent might be a Rastafarian, and they want every child to be taught Rastafarianism. No. What you're going to have is those who want to impart Rastafarian values to their children will be able to send their children to a school where that is the value system which is being taught. Another one will be a science school where, it's mostly about science. That's a big part of their curriculum. Another one will be business. What I'm saying is it's about time we allow the education space to mature and evolve and to have tremendous amount of innovation. And let us learn and see all of these creative outcomes that can happen, as opposed to continuing the monolithic system that the colonial masters have given us to prepare little minions to become employees, and that's it. No, we want a school system that will bring out the best in all of our children, recognizing their unique needs and qualities, and allowing that to come forward. So my job as a leader is not to just say things that will make people happy and to say what will get us elected. My job is to lead us in terms of thinking and seeing and understanding, to open our eyes, to see that maybe the way that we have been taught, maybe the way that things have been going for years are just not the right ways. In fact, we should know by now, if you look at it, if it was the right way, Jamaica would be a better place today. If what we have now, the system of education, is the right way, we'd have a better place. And I know each of us would think if I just had the chance to run the education system, it would be better. All of us think so. But I want to guard against that. I don't want you or me to get to be the dictator of what everybody learns. I want us to have a country that facilitates different views and ideas, different approaches, and then we can learn from them. Just imagine if we had a mosaic of schools and then we saw, oh, look at that. The way they teach math works beautifully. And then other schools now will see and copy. Yeah? And then maybe one school who copy, they might then modify what they have copied a little bit, and we find out, oh, that's an even better approach. But instead, what we have now is a monolithic system that if we're teaching one school foolishness, we teach all schools the foolishness. The children right across the country learning the same foolishness. No, let us have diversity. Let's not be afraid of diversity. Let's embrace diversity. Let's embrace new ideas. Let's embrace innovation. Let's embrace inventiveness. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Devereaux. Thank you, Jasmine Powell, for your comment there. Jasmine says the UIC model will break the chains and shackles of the minds and empower the people. Exactly so. Sean says, only teach us about the Bible, not how to read, but what to think rather than not to think. But let us know that God will provide us with a better life, and so on. Dameen asks, what will happen to public school? We're going to have only public schools. We're going to have true public schools. Right now, what we have are government schools. We don't have public schools. A true public school is a school which is run by the people. So a community school, a school where the teachers, the parents, the administrators, other stakeholders in the community can get together and reach consensus on the kind of school product they want to offer to their students. Of course, with the guidance and assistance of the government, but not the dictate of the government. So we're not going to have the government dictating. The government will have basic standards, school quality in terms of the physical premises, the hygiene, the qualification of teachers, meaning the teacher must be competent in the area that they're going to be teaching. So for example, in UIC Jamaica, we're no longer going to have basic schools where the persons who are teaching the children are not trained to teach or don't have the competences. Now, we're not going to force you in terms of what the training must be, but we're not going to allow the child to be taught by somebody who is not equipped to teach what they're trying to teach. So you have to demonstrate competency. You can get that competency through different avenues, but you have to demonstrate competency. We want, for example, when you finish basic school, you have a thorough appreciation for the rudimentaries of mathematics and communication. You already have learned a lot about your body, about human behavior, and you're quite familiar with the fundamentals of money. And as you go into primary school, you're building on those. You're learning in a spatial way. So you're learning by doing a lot. You're learning by touching and feeling and using technology and using tools and really connecting your theoretical knowledge with the real world around you from day one, from the play sessions in basic school, the learning tools that you're using, and moving that straight through all the way to when you're now in a trades program or a college program or a university program. You're going to be really brilliant from primary school. So you can actually leave high school and be a highly productive citizen in the new Jamaica. You don't even have to go to college. But if you want to go to college, you'll be. In our system, nobody is left out. So if you have the capacity, let's say you were born in, like me, when I was born to a single mother, poor single mother with no means, In fact, when I was finishing stats, I went to stats, when I was leaving stats, I did very well. I had about 13 subjects at the time. I did very, very well in school, both academic and extracurricular activities, very, very well. But when I was finished, I couldn't go anywhere because I had no money, My father, who could afford it, had no interest in paying for me to go anywhere. And my mother, who wanted to give me the best, didn't have the funds. So I was hopeless at that point. But fortunately, I got a full scholarship because of my performance in school. So I could then go to UTech to study engineering. In the UIC system, you go as high as you can in your studies based on your competencies, based on your performance. So as long as you are performing, we will see to it that you go to the top of your field of study. So whether your top is high school whether your top is a trade school, whether your top is an undergraduate degree, whether your top is a master's degree, whether your top is a PhD, as far as you can go, we, the people, will pay for that. Not by dictating or having the kind of school system now, which is monolithic, but a diverse system that allows you to choose your path. So you're going to have some students, for example, who are self-learners. So they can choose, for example, a self-learning path, but they're not spending a lot of time going through school the normal way, 5 days a week, in a class with other students who learn differently from them. No, they're going to be able to take different paths. And as a result, they might get to a PhD at 18 because we now allow people to grow as fast as they can or as slow as they must, right? So we're not going to destroy you. We're not going to kick you out. We're not going to, just because you're not as fast as somebody else. I failed common entrance twice. So I was a slow learner at that stage. And then I failed technical entrance too. But after that, I was then, through the window. So let us work with our people at their levels. We're going to have adult education, allowing the adult to get back into school. He's 25 and he didn't do well. He messed up. He's 30, didn't do well, whatever. We will allow a system that allows that person to get back in quite easily and learn and move up the ladder at the pace that his intellect and abilities allow. So the only inhibitor for every citizen will be themselves. As long as you're willing and able to put in the work, the country will be behind you to make sure you can be a great value added to our society. Yeah. What is the UIC's position on homeschooling? Says, can't pronounce your name. We believe it's a very viable option. We fully support homeschooling. We believe it's the right of the parents to choose the education of their children, provided when assessed, the parent is not putting the student at risk. So they're not neglecting the student's studies or learning, or creating, any form of disenfranchising situation for the child. So we do support the parents. Yeah. I see. Nothing is ever free. We need to get the people to understand this. Correct, Devereaux. There's no such thing as free education or free healthcare. There's no free. We, the people, must earn and pay for what we want. There are some things we will pay for in common, and that's why we collect taxes. For example, in common, we'll pay for the roads. In common, we'll pay for the street lights. In common, we'll pay for the treatment, the manicuring of our society to make sure all of Jamaica is not only safe, clean, and orderly, but looks, smells, and feel like a tourist resort, because we want that. So we're going to raise the taxes to pay for this, but for us to raise the taxes, the people have to be productive. So we're going to invest in education in a way that allows our people to be highly productive, high producers, and by extension, become wealthy people, because we're producing at a level that allows us to, trade with the rest of the world effectively. So, all right. Hopefully I've answered all the questions that you have raised. Is there any other questions before I go? I'm a little bit over my time again tonight. Any questions? Any final question before we wrap it up for the night? Any final questions? Oh, Bruce Davis says, wonderful discussion. UIC and the paper would be a good combination. Looking forward to seeing Mr. Miguel again. Thank you, Bruce. We need a first-class basic school system, fully tech-equipped with good learning facilities. Yes, Dameen, we do need a first-class. We need a basic school system it is actually a school. It is actually educating our children to ensure that they perform well at each of the levels that we go. So definitely. Thank you, Lion Rule the Jungle. All right, so thanks everyone. Have a good night until next time. Have a wonderful evening, and remember, the UIC is for one Jamaica, and we are stronger together.